Chapter 36. Lesson. My eyes met his, my body full of excitement. "When can we start?" I asked, while basically bouncing in place. He laughed softly, finishing a spoonful of rice. "Easy there, kiddo. Don't you have one of your lessons with Leora this morning?" he reminded me. My eyes widened as I spun around to see that the sun had now completely appeared over the horizon. "I completely forgot," I blurted out, scrambling out of my seat with the spoon still in my mouth. "I'm going to be late." Grabbing a bag off a nearby chair, I headed for the door. "I'll teach you when you return," Roderick told me. Nodding, I quickly slid into my shoes before barging through the wooden door, pausing in the door frame, looking back at him. "See you later," I said before dashing down the street. Rocks skipped across as I ran, my feet pushing off the ground, propelling me forward. My bag swung back and forth as it hung from my right shoulder. The streets were still quiet, but the lanterns that lined the street had already been extinguished. Turning a corner, a man appeared in front of me, causing me to have to sidestep to avoid him. Tripping slightly, I lost my balance. Catching myself, I looked at the man. "Watch where you're going, kid," the man, who stood only a few inches taller than me, shouted. He had gray hair, most of it on the sides of his head, with a massive bald patch in the middle. His age showed in the wrinkles lining his face. He looked down at me with green eyes, his left one slightly twitching. He held a cane at his side, leaning against it while scolding me. Bowing my head, I spoke softly. "Sorry, sir," I said while looking up at him with my cold, red eyes. "Can you forgive me?" He took a step back as I spoke, his cane hand slightly shaking. It's all right. Just be more careful," he shouted at me while turning away. "I will, thank you," I responded. Quickly turning, I speed-walked down the street, waiting for him to turn the corner. As he did, I took off again, activating Earthen Sense LVL-4 to ensure that I wouldn't run into anyone else. After a few minutes, I made it to the medical center and entered through the door. I breathed out, sighing slightly. "You're late," a woman yelled sternly from behind a desk. My body froze and my shoulders stiffened. My eyes slightly turned to meet the woman's. "Ha ha ha, your lucky lady Leora is in surgery," the woman blurted out, unable to contain her laughter. "You should have seen your face. You looked like you saw a demon." My shoulders relaxed as I saw her face, the knot in my stomach dissipating. "Hello, Kayla," I said. "You got me," I laughed softly. "You're acting all cold. Can you be a little happier to see me, like how you act with Roderick or Matt?" "Well, it's just the commander now since Matt has stopped visiting," I said, slightly agitated. "Ha, give the poor guy a break. Lady Leora has been putting him through a lot in the past few weeks," Kayla said, trying to persuade me. "I'll think about it," I responded. "It was worth a shot," she sighed. "Anyways, Lady Leora said that I'm in charge of your lessons today, since she's stuck in surgery." "All right, then what do we have in store today?" I questioned. "You'll see, follow me," Kayla yelled, heading for the back door of the medical center. Following closely behind her, we made our way into the backyard of the medical center. It had multiple cleaning buckets full of water, with many clothing lines that hung clean sheets and linen uniforms. Kayla stood near the back of the yard, on the side of a small clothing line, holding a single sheet. She pointed at a wooden stump and gestured for me to sit. "Are you ready?" she asked, taking hold of the sheet. Nodding, my eyes quickly followed her hands as they started to move. "Then Tada," she shouted, flipping the entire sheet over. On the other side was a rough sketch of shapes that contained words. "Today's class is on geography." Her hands made weird gestures as she showed off the crude map. My eyes traced across the sheet, examining the layout and words that were upon it. I could feel my eyes almost glow brighter as they read every word. Kayla's eyes fell upon my face and she smiled. "I knew you'd love this," she said while pumping her fist slightly. Now stay quiet and let me teach you about the continent Aurelian. She pulled out a stick and pointed at the center of the board. This is Ilarion, the kingdom that our small village is located in. The stick pointed to the left, near a black line with the words Lumir written slightly to the right of the line. We are here, right on the border between Ilarion and Valthorn. She sighed. Ilarion and Valthorn have never really been on good terms, but right now we are at peace. Valthorn is also the only other main human kingdom on this continent. Returning to Ilarion, she pointed towards a nearby name. This is the closest city to us, a small merchant city called Silver Cross. It has a population of around 20 million. 20 million? Is that truly considered small? Is 20 million really a small number of people? I asked. Ha ha ha, well, considering our capital Valerian has a population of around 2 billion, then yes, 20 million is minuscule. She moved the stick to the northern part of Ilarion, to the capital of the kingdom. Actually, Lumir is most likely one of the smallest villages in Ilarion. We only have around 20,000 residents. My foot tapped the ground, my eyes wandering across the board. In total, Ilarion has probably around 25 billion people spread across the entire kingdom. 25 billion. That's a huge number of people, and if Matt's correct about a 1 in a million chance for a person to have some magical affinity, then there are only around 25,000 magic users with one affinity in the entirety of Ilarion. Only 2,500 with 2 affinities, and only 250 with 3. Thinking on that scale, it is amazing that we have 2 magic users in Lumir, Matt and Lady Leora. After gathering my thoughts, I braced my leg, halting it from moving before redirecting my eyes to Kayla. Yes, it is hard to fathom such large numbers, but let's move on, she said. Wait, Kayla, question, I yelled out enthusiastically. She sighed. Yes. So the odds of magic users are extremely rare, correct? I asked. That's correct, she answered. All right, then how do cities with that many people function? I questioned. Well, I have never been to a major city before, but I do know that the majority of mages do not actually contribute to making those cities run smoothly, she said. Then how can they function properly? I inquired. Well, that's the fun thing. Mages can control mana by chanting and imagining what they want the mana to do, but that does not mean that other people can't use magic as well, she said with a smile. My mouth opened, but before I could talk, she spoke again. What allows cities with massive populations to function are magical runes. Magical runes, I yelled out, my cold mask crumbling for a moment. What are they? Ha ha ha, magical runes are made by artificers. There are an endless number of runes that do different things, but to put it simply, magical runes are symbols that can be inscribed into objects, and these symbols can be used to give mana simple commands, she replied. Simple commands, I probed. Simple commands can be like generating flames or water, or a command that detects whether it is day or night. There are many varying commands, she said, breathing in slightly before continuing. Runes have 3 different forms, the first being isolated runes with a single action symbol, which are single command runes such as creating a flame. The second is compound runes, which are several linked instructions woven into one symbol, she said, putting down the stick and walking over to one of the lanterns near the street. Pointing at it, she continued. For example, this lantern doesn't ignite on its own. Inside here, there is a lantern rune which combines 3 simple instructions: detect darkness, ignite wick, and regulate flame, she said, walking back over to me. The downside of having more instructions inside a symbol is the complexity of creating the rune. The larger the symbol will be, the more dangerous it could be if one fails, and the higher the cost, she explains. Runes are amazing. They bring magic into everyday life, but they aren't too common either, as even the commander doesn't have a rune for his home, at least now that I know of. The third form is rune arrays. These are massive arrays that consist of multiple compound runes working together to complete large tasks. She grabbed her stick and pointed it at the capital once again. These arrays are what allow for a city to thrive, as they can handle waste management, water supply, and defense. I couldn't explain to you how they work. That is something you'd have to learn in an academy. She finished. Runes are so cool, I mumbled, my eyes fixated on the map, my mind still trying to understand how an array would function. My head shot up as a thought entered my mind. How do runes get the mana they need to function? Another great question. I'm not 100% sure, but I think the majority can sustain themselves by just absorbing the mana in the air around them, she said while rubbing her chin. For larger ones, I believe they require some sort of power source. What a power source could be, I'm not sure. Okay, I see. How long can they last? I asked. I know that the lantern runes have to be replaced around once a year. Their lines slowly wear down, and if they are ignored for too long, the rune can overheat or rupture. For large arrays, I believe that as long as they are maintained, they can last for a long time. I see. I looked down, slightly disappointed that I could not get all the information that I wanted. Luna, this really interests you, doesn't it? Kayla asked me. Yes, it does. Magic is so amazing. Well, you should attend an academy. I know it's hard to get in as a peasant, but with Lady Leora backing you, and if you work hard, I bet you can be accepted into one, she said with a massive smile on her face. My eyes wandered as I pondered the idea. An academy will allow me to grow stronger, and it will let me learn more. But if I get accepted, then will I have to leave all of this behind? Will I lose all the things that I have grown to love? Will I be alone again? A single tear rolled down my cheek as I thought about my siblings and then about the commander and the people I've met, faces flashing through my mind. No. Power is what I want so I can protect the people I love. If I go to an academy, I won't lose anyone. They'll be right here waiting for me. I looked at Kayla, my red eyes reflecting in her blue ones. I'll try my best. Thank you, Kayla, I told her, smiling softly. I wiped my eyes, drying them with my sleeves. Watching me, Kayla stiffened slightly before smiling back at me. I believe in you, Luna, she told me warmly. Now let's get back to geography. We've been sidetracked. Haha, Tilda, yeah. Let's finish this lesson, I responded with a slight chuckle. I focused on her while she poked the sheet with her wooden stick. Chapter 37. Knowledge, Cake, and Sweat. And with that, we are done, Kayla exclaimed while rolling up the sheet and dropping the stick on the ground. In just over an hour, Kayla had explained everything she thought I needed to know. I learned that Ilarion was in the heart of the continent, with its capital city being Valyrian. Valthorn, whose capital was Valtharis, bordered Ilarion to the west. To the east of Ilarion, and separated by a vast ancient forest, was the elven kingdom Astrael, with its capital Astrolith. To the south of both Ilarion and Astrael was the dwarven kingdom Khosdram, and at its center was Grimhold. She told me that Khosdram's mountain range was enormous, rivaling even the ancient forests of Astrael. Next, she explained that in the very south of the continent was a grand marshland, the lizardmen kingdom Zarkesh, with its capital Zalthun. Finally, she touched on that much of the eastern side of the continent consisted of the Howling Wilds, territory controlled by the 6 major beastmen tribes. She explained that in total, only around 40% of the continent was actually claimed by a kingdom. But even within those claimed regions, there were mysterious and unexplored lands. In the end, throughout the continent, there were still unclaimed wilds. Large plains, lakes, forests, mountains, and highlands. The Ashen Expanse, a ruthless volcanic region, harsh terrain that is made even more difficult to traverse as the ground is covered with at least 3 feet of ash. and the frost reach in the far north of the continent, an Arctic wasteland with snow-capped mountains that pierce the sky. In the far west was the Shattered Sands, an endless desert with raging sandstorms throughout. According to Kayla, at the center of the Shattered Sands was a ruined temple with untold secrets hidden within. In the far southeast, connected to the Lizardman Kingdom, was the Verdant Sepulchre, a lush, dense emerald jungle that climbs atop high mountains. Filled with beautiful fauna and massive, raging waterfalls, it is magnificent at first glance, but in reality it is ancient and dangerous, full of ruins and mysteries. All in all, that was the basic rundown of the great continent Aurelian. As I watched her stick hit the ground, it felt as if my knowledge had expanded greatly. My head ached for a while as I engraved what I had learnt into my mind, ensuring that I would not forget today's lesson. This world is massive, and I haven't even broken the surface of what there is to know about it. Sighing, I stood from the stump and bowed slightly. "Thank you, Kayla. This was far more exciting than learning basic household tasks," I told her while giving her a slight smile. "No worries. This was more fun than doing boring paperwork," she laughed. "Well, same time next week, okay? Lady Leora will probably be free as well." Nodding, I made my way for the door. But before I entered, Kayla called out to me. "Talk to Roderick about an academy," she shouted. Looking back, I gave her a thumbs up before entering the medical center, where I picked up my bag before heading out onto the street. It was still very early, but more people were out and walking. Thinking about learning how to use a sword made my legs move slightly faster, bringing my pace to a fast speed walk. As I walked, my eyes wandered from person to person as they passed. When they were close enough, I quickly activated my world's knowledge skill. Human, LVL1. A young boy who looked a few years younger than what my body's age looks like. Human, LVL3. A middle-aged man with brown hair. He carried a bucket of fruits, which made my stomach rumble. Human, LVL2. A young woman who seemed to be a few years older than my body. On her back, she carried a bucket of sheets and clothes. There's. Human, LVL5. The highest-leveled person I saw the entire walk. He was young, maybe in his late 20s, but he wore leather armor, and on his back was a bow and arrow. He must have been a hunter. During the entire walk, I did not spot a single person above level 5. But in earnest, in the past month I have not met anyone whose level I have not been able to read, except for the commander and Lady Leora. In my previous lesson, other than learning how to cook more types of food, Lady Leora explained that the majority of people don't actually choose to level up, but instead find professions that they enjoy, or that their skills can be useful for. Most people focus more on skill development than leveling, especially since leveling requires killing monsters, which the majority of people find too dangerous and not worth it. I understand why they don't do it, but that is not a path that I want to take. I want to strengthen my skills and my level so that I can be the strongest and be able to protect people who aren't willing to get stronger. Sighing, I pushed open the door of the commander's house, and as I stepped in, a slight warmth entered my body and a sweet aroma flooded my nose. Walking down the hallway and into the kitchen, my eyes almost watered as the sight in front of me made my heart palpitate. On the table was a massive, dark, fluffy piece of food. Near the counter was the commander who had just tossed something into the bin we used for garbage. "Welcome back, kiddo," he said, cutting into the fluffy treat with a knife. "A small gift for you being here for 1 month," placing the treat onto a plate and handed it over to me. My mouth almost watered as I took the plate from him, pulling out a chair at the table and sitting down. "What is it?" I asked. He smiled. "It's obsidian cream cake," he smiled, putting a piece of the cake onto a plate for himself. "My personal favorite," he laughed. Smiling, I dug in, piercing the fluffy exterior with a fork. Placing the cake in my mouth, it warmed my tongue for a moment before melting away. A deep chocolate taste filled my mouth, which lingered until the next bite. Smiling, I devoured the entire slice, leaving not even a single crumb. Of everything I had experienced in Lumiere, food had to be one of the best things. It did not compare to the pleasure I got when I devoured blood, but it still made my body feel warm and full. Raising the plate, I asked, "Can I have another?" The commander, finishing the last bite of his slice, smiled before responding. "Maybe after, but don't forget, today you learn how to wield a sword." My eyes widened as he said it. Nodding quickly, I stood up, grabbing his plate and mine, dashing and putting them in the sink. "When can we start?" I asked. He stood up and headed for the back door. "Right now." Heading into the backyard, Roderick picked up one wooden sword and tossed it at me. Catching it, I examined the size, length, and weight of the blade. I wanted to start with a real sword right away. Sighing, I walked up to him. He was now holding a wooden sword of his own. "First, we start with the basics. Show me the stance you would use right now." Listening to him, I held the sword's hilt with both my hands and pointed it forward. As I did, I got nudged by his sword in the back of the knee. "Wrong," he said. I winced slightly at the touch while he continued speaking. "Balance and movement are fundamentals of swordsmanship. Sword fighting starts with the feet," he said. "Keep your feet apart. Lead foot forward, rear foot slightly turned. Bend your knees and keep your weight between them." I did as he said, changing my form to match his. He gave me a few whacks, but after a few attempts, he kept speaking. "Now swing." Swinging down, my arms and body leaned forward. I felt the wooden sword break through the air. As it reached the bottom, I took a few steps forward as the momentum of my strike carried me. He scolded me again. "Your strike is powerful, but that was terrible. In a real battle, you'd be dead," he said, getting into position and delivering a powerful strike, but controlling his movement from the spot where he stood. I felt the wind pass by me and my hair blow slightly. Strength doesn't matter if you're falling over every time you swing. Keep your weight between your feet, knees loose. Don't lean into the blade. Watching the demonstration, I got into position. "Now move with control," he said. I took a step forward, then was stopped right away. "Too far, you stretched your stance. If I were to attack you right now, you'd have to pull yourself back up before you could react. In other words, you've created an opening for your opponent," he said while tapping my ankle with the wooden sword. "Small steps. Your feet carry your sword. The sword doesn't carry you." He moved the sword from my foot, grabbing my shoulder slightly while moving my hands to be more comfortable on the blade. "Try again," he said, pulling away. Taking my stance, I thought about everything he said. I bent my knees, spread my feet, and focused on my balance. With all my power, I swung down, taking a small step forward and ensuring that I did not overextend. After the strike, I looked down at my body. My legs shook slightly, and my arms hurt, but I was not pulled forward by the blade this time. "Better," the commander stated. "But stop trying to murder the air. I told you to control the sword, not overpower it. Remember that it is a weapon. If used correctly, it can cause harm even without the use of too much strength." He took his stance, aiming his blade forward once again. With a quick and precise movement, he swung, a gust of powerful air blowing against me. "I barely put any strength into that," he said. "That came from controlling the blade, speed, balance, and precision. Not blindly throwing everything I have into a swing." Watching him, I positioned myself once again, focusing on control over power. With a swing, I felt the air crack once again, but this time my arms did not feel pain. "Now do that 100 times. You can only stop once you do 100 perfect swings, and don't worry, I'll be counting," he told me. "Oh, 100? I questioned, slightly trembling while looking at my already shaky legs. "Yes, 100, and I want to hear the crack of the air each time," he responded with a smile. Sighing, I got in position and took another swing. 1, he counted. I brought the sword back up and swung again, but this time I tumbled forward. Focus, Luna, he told me. Think of the sword as an extension of yourself. Breathing in, I closed my eyes, listening to the forest as the wind blew through the trees. I listened for the stirring of animals and the vibrations that they made. The chirping birds' songs filled my ears. Breathing out, I opened my eyes and got into my stance once again. "Why did you close your eyes?" he asked. "To concentrate," I replied. "Concentrate with your eyes open. In battle, you can't afford to lose sight of what's in front of you," he informed me. Rolling my eyes, I struck forward. 1, he said again, smiling slightly. With every swing, my legs felt like they were going to fall off. It wasn't pain. It was the discomfort of having to control my movements. The pressure not to mess up also strained my mind as the commander counted higher and higher. 18, he said. I swung again. The sword didn't move properly as it went down, my knees buckling slightly. The familiar sound of the air cracking did not echo through my ear this time. My eyes widened as I looked at the commander. Beads of sweat were dripping down my face. "Explain, what was wrong with that last swing?" he asked me. My stance broke down. My legs didn't generate any force, I said. Correct. Swinging a sword is more than just arms. It's your entire body, your feet, your hips, your arms, shoulders, core, and even your mind, he explained, nudging each part of my body with his sword until finally poking me on the forehead. Now keep going. I breathed, keeping my eyes open and focusing on my entire body. I swung once again. The air snapped as the wooden sword broke through it. 1, he said, starting the count over. Sweat dripped from my pores, darkening the ground below me. Each breath I made was ragged. The sun traveled in the sky, reaching its peak, and then falling more and more into the west. My hands were wrecked. Any damage from gripping the sword healed almost as quickly as it appeared, but demonic regeneration did nothing to ease the exhaustion weighing down my arms. As the sun disappeared behind the trees, the commander's voice rang out. 99, he said. Tears sat at the edge of my vision as I prepared myself for the final swing, focusing on everything that he taught me. I struck down. My body moved how it should have. The world went silent for a moment before a loud crack echoed through the backyard. 100, he said quietly, a small smile appearing on his face. Good job, kiddo. Smiling, I fell to my knees, coughing violently for a few seconds. The sword still in my hands, my fingers creaked as I opened my hands, the sword escaping my grasp and falling to the ground. Let's go finish that cake, the commander said, patting me on the head before going back inside. Letting out a final deep breath, I smiled. Forcing myself to my feet, I followed him. Chapter 38, Swordsmanship. The cake was delicious. By the time I finally stopped eating, I must have finished about 70% of it. The commander had only eaten another slice before heading to his room for the night. Sitting at the table alone, I looked at my hands. They were still quivering, but the feeling of the sword was still there. While I was practicing, I could feel how badly I had strained my muscles, yet after only an hour of rest, something already felt different. It felt as if my body had adapted to be better at swinging a sword. Feeling strange, I thought for a few moments, and I grabbed my bag and made my way outside once again. Umbra Astrum had risen in the sky, darkness now flooding the world, but with heightened perception, I wasn't too bothered. Finding the wooden sword on the ground, I picked it up. It seemed to be lighter, if only slightly. Taking a deep breath, I got into my stance, focusing on control. I swung forward, cracking the air. My eyes widened with the strike. Calming down, I struck again. It's easier. It feels like I have more control. Looking back at the house and then at the dark forest, I hesitated before entering the Lumiere forest. I don't want to get caught, So I'll go deep enough where I don't have to worry about being spotted, but I'll also stay close enough to the village where there aren't many monsters. Carrying the sword, I looked back once more before disappearing into the dense brush. Using my skills, I pushed through the forest, avoiding rocks and trees. My clothes were still drenched in sweat, but I didn't mind. I'll bathe and change into my spare clothes before I get back. My eyes fell upon the bag I had that contained my spare clothes. I walked for around 15 minutes before reaching a small clearing. In the middle was a single blue glob. Slime, LVL2. Only level 2. I was surprised it was this close to the village. I guess it's just an unintelligent creature. It probably wandered this close by accident, but I'm still surprised Lumier's militia hadn't found it. Placing my bag down, I looked at my wooden sword. I took my stance, pointing it towards the slime. I slipped off my shoes, letting my bare feet touch the earth beneath me. Tapping my foot a few times caused the slime to start rolling towards me. As it got close enough, I breathed out, striking at the slime. The air cracked as my sword fell, but to my surprise, the slime contorted to avoid my strike. My attack missed, but I hadn't fallen forward. Bringing my sword back up, I tried to attack again, but the slime was too close. I tried to readjust myself and back up, but I ended up tumbling and missing my next strike. The slime latched onto my foot, melting the surface layer of the skin. Wincing, I kicked it away, sending it rolling away once again. My skin regrew quickly, and I sighed. Thank goodness I took off my shoes. Looking at the slime that was already approaching me again, I got back into my stance. Focus. Think about your strike, but also predict what the slime might do. Of course it's going to try and avoid my attack. A mindless creature still has instincts. Striking at it again, I watched as it dodged, but my strike clipped the side of it. Some slime flew through the air, but surprisingly my sword bounced off the creature, causing me to lose balance again. Stumbling, I tried to reposition myself. Okay, what went wrong last time? I tried to reposition in a panic, and I got tripped up, which didn't allow me to deliver a proper attack. This time, focus on your movements. My mind raced as I backstepped away from the slime. I tripped, but it was small enough not to affect my next attack greatly. Striking down, my sword hit the center of the slime, causing its gel to ripple, but to my dismay, the wooden sword only bounced off. The slime attached to my foot again before I kicked it off. Sighing, I readied myself once again. Looking at the slime, I watched how it jiggled against the ground. A sudden thought entered my mind. Activating Earthen Sense, I focused the skill completely on the slime. I swung down. Through Earthen Sense, I felt the slime vibrate beneath me, its weight beginning to shift left. Before I even realized it, I adjusted my swing and struck it directly in the center. With the strike, the slime writhed slightly before jumping at me again. Focusing on repositioning, I dodged backwards, preparing to strike it again. Remember, it's not just power, it's control. If I strike it where it's weak, then I can do more damage. My eyes found the spot where I had just struck it. The gel around the impact was noticeably thinner. Striking down and aiming for its weak spot, I hit the creature. The attack flattened the slime, and within its blue gel, I saw its core crack slightly. The slime jiggled violently and backed away a few feet. My eyes tracked the creature, and Earthen Sense allowed me to know when it was going to move again. The slime did not move for several seconds, and with heightened perception, I saw that the crack in its core was beginning to mend. Realizing that I needed to attack the creature before it healed, I approached it. My mind strained as I thought about my footwork. Here it comes. The slime jumped at me, and even though I had Earthen Sense activated, I had to lean back to try and swing at it. Shit! I overextended my stance. The slime slammed into my legs, causing me to fall onto my back. It climbed onto my stomach and started eating away at my shirt. "That's my shirt, don't dissolve it," I yelled, grabbing the small creature and tossing it to the side. Looking down at my shirt, I saw that the fabric was slightly thinner but was still intact. Letting out a breath of relief, I approached the slime again, focusing even more. I sensed it was about to attack, but I realized I had overextended once again. This time, I reacted quickly enough and dodged to the side. Cursing, I tried again, and as I sensed it beginning to move, I struck down, finally placing myself in the right position. Adjusting my attack to its movements, I struck it in its center once again, cracking its core even more. The slime jiggled and began to retreat once again, but I sensed this. With a controlled step in its direction, I raised my sword once again. The air cracked as it struck down upon the creature. It did not have time to avoid, and with the sword making contact with its gel, its core shattered. Acquired 10 EXP. Picking up its broken core, I absorbed it into my hand. No new skill or upgrade this time, but at least more blood, and it was tasty. Smiling, I looked up at Umbra Estrum hanging in the sky. It had moved slightly. That meant I'd been in the forest for almost an hour now. I have until Umbra Estrum reaches the center of the sky. Then I have to bathe and do my chores. That still leaves enough time for a few more slimes. Closing my eyes, I focused completely on Earthen Sense. Its range spread through the forest as I tried to pick up on vibrations. I ignored the other creatures that I could sense, focusing on just finding a slime. After a few minutes of looking, the vibrations echoed through my body. "Found you," I said aloud. I placed my shoes in my bag and picked it up. Using my skills, I ran through the forest while deliberately practicing the footwork Roderick had taught me, even without an opponent in front of me. When I reached the slime, I saw that it was inside a fallen log, jiggling around slowly. Dropping my bag, I tapped my foot on the ground once again to get its attention. Sensing that it was starting to move towards the log entrance, I prepared. As it appeared, I saw that it was quite smaller than the previous one. Slime, LVL1. Smiling, I dashed towards it, ensuring to use the proper footwork. Swinging down at it and sensing its vibrations, I struck it dead on with my wooden sword, shattering its core instantly. Level 1 slimes are truly much weaker than Level 2 slimes. Or has my swordsmanship improved that much already? Pondering the question, I picked up the core and absorbed it. Acquired 5 EXP. "Yummy," I said aloud while licking my lips. The night flew by as I encountered more slimes and practiced my skills on them. I faced another Level 1, which was a simple challenge. Another Level 2 was more difficult, requiring 3 precise strikes to the same spot before I finally destroyed it. The last slime I came across was a true challenge, a Level 3. A Level 3 slime could form simple shapes from its gel, including spikes. This made me work the hardest, as I had to figure out how to strike right away after dodging, since if I didn't, it would attack with another spike right away. It took quite a few tries and a few close calls, but in the end, after half a dozen strikes, I killed it. But there was a cost, a small hole in my pants, and a chip in my wooden sword. On the upside, the Level 3 slime pushed me just over the edge, causing me to level up. None of the slimes gave me any skills or upgrades, though. "You have reached LVL 3. The words vanished, and a strengthening heat enveloped my body. I could feel myself getting slightly stronger. After several seconds, the heat dissipated, leaving me with a feeling of new strength. Sighing, I looked up at Umbra Estrum. It was nearing the center of the sky. Looking at my sword, I got into my stance and took a swing. The added power from my level up almost caused my legs to buckle since I had not gotten used to the change yet. I had to fight to stay balanced, but the strike was a success. My eyes traced along the sword upwards into the air where a purple screen popped up. Acquired swordsmanship, LVL 1. Swordsmanship. I actually got a skill related to swordsmanship, I exclaimed, looking at the wooden sword in my hand. Examining it, I became vividly aware of its size and weight, as if my hands understood the weapon better than they had moments ago. Getting into my stance, my eyes widened. It feels different, more natural. I didn't have to think about my grip nearly as much, and the tiny imperfections in my stance were easier to notice. When I shifted my feet, my body seemed to understand the movement better than when I'd practiced before. Everything feels more refined. Taking a few more swings, I felt my body adjust to the increase in strength. I looked up once again. Umbra Astrum had now reached the peak of the sky. Taking a glance around the forest, I focused on Earthen's sense to make sure no one or thing was around. I picked up my bag and began a slow, methodical walk through the forest toward the stream. During the walk, I made sure that my body had gotten used to being level 3. Once I arrived, I undressed and took a long soak in the crystal-clear stream water. I washed away the muck caught in my hair and cleansed myself of the sweat that ran down my body. Floating in the water, I closed my eyes and just listened to the forest, the rustling of leaves and the howling of wind. Standing up in the water, I got into my stance and slashed using just my hands. I felt that even without the sword, my technique was fairly good. Falling back, I laughed. Sinking underneath the water, I felt my soreness fade. I closed my eyes and let the darkness engulf my vision once again. Chapter 39, Aftermath. The sun broke through the trees, its rays blanketing me through the window while I prepared breakfast. My chores were complete, and my dirty clothes from last night were washed and drying outside. The thought of advancing my swordsmanship in secret made my stomach tingle. Smiling, I cut into a berry, splitting it in two before putting each half onto a separate plate. "Luna," the commander's voice rang from his room. I froze for a moment. He stood in the doorframe, our eyes met, but his gaze quickly drifted past me, focusing on something behind me. He walked past the table to the door, grabbing the sword. He ran his hand along its edge, his fingers tracing along the chipped portion. He frowned. "Care to explain?" he asked. I forgot about the sword. My blood ran cold as my mind tried to come up with an excuse. I stayed out late," I stumbled out before getting cut off. "It's fine if you train at night, but sleep is important. So if you're going to get up early, then go to bed earlier so you can get enough hours. Sleep allows for your body to recover and adjust," he said, placing the sword down. "And you have to treat your sword better, even if it's a wooden training one." He scolded me. Taking a seat at the table, he continued. "In battle, your sword is your greatest ally. Don't treat it like a tool." "I understand. I'll do better," I said. "Good, now have a seat," he responded. Sighing, I sat down and dug into breakfast. The meal was eerily quiet. Finishing quickly as usual, I gathered the dirty dishes and washed them with the stream water I'd collected earlier. The commander, finishing soon after me, left his dish on the table before heading outside. "Come out once you're done," he said while grabbing both of the swords. Sighing, I washed his plate quickly, leaving still a few marks on its surface before rushing through the door and outside. The commander stood in the middle of the yard looking into the forest. As I appeared, he tossed the sword at me. Catching it, I examined the blade. It was not the one that was chipped, but one that seemed to have not seen too much action. My eyes fell upon the blade the commander held. It was mine, chipped and sweat-stained. "These wooden swords aren't good for vigorous work like what I'll put you through, but even so, as a side lesson, complete your training without damaging that one too much," he said. "Now get in your stance." Doing as he said, I breathed in. My stance was clean and my grip natural. "Swing," he commanded. I swung. Again. The air cracked. The commander didn't speak. He just stared at me for several seconds. "Once more," he said. My sword traveled down precisely. "Luna." "Yes," I replied. "Did you already obtain swordsmanship?" he asked. My heart skipped a beat, but my head slowly nodded. His eyes widened slightly. "When?" he questioned. My head pounded like a drum. I clasped the sword tightly, and my lip trembled slightly. "Last night," I responded. His foot tapped the ground a few times. "How late exactly did you stay up practicing last night?" I sighed, releasing my grip on the sword and locking eyes with him. "Until Umbra Astrum reached the sky's peak," I said. Sighing, he opened his mouth, but before he could say anything, I spoke. "But it was because I really wanted to get better. I practiced everything that you taught me, balance, control, my stance," I blurted out. "I even tried to strike some trees to feel what it was like to make contact with something. That's probably how that happened." I pointed at the chip in the sword he was holding. He didn't speak for a few seconds, but seemed to be contemplating something. "I am not your father, so I can't control what you do every hour of the day," he breathed out. "But if you're going to train at night, don't be stupid about it. Your body needs time to recover." He gripped the sword tight, his eyes wandering along it. "And stop hitting trees," he added. "Now show me 20 strikes and then we can officially begin." Breathing out in relief, I got into position before starting to deliver the strikes. 1, 2, 3. .20. A drop of sweat ran down my cheek as I finished the last strike. My eyes fell upon the commander who had not moved since I began. After waiting for a few seconds, I watched as he took a few steps to position himself in front of me. "Today won't be the same as yesterday," he said. "What do you mean?" I questioned. "Yesterday you learned how to swing a sword, but today you will learn how to deal with someone who swings back." My eyes widened as he dashed forward, his sword raised above his head. I activated Earthen Sense right away, but the vibrations weren't enough to properly track his movements. He raised his sword above his head and in an instant brought it down. The speed of his attack was so great that I didn't even have time to try and raise my blade. The world seemed to slow down as the blade got closer to my head. My body was frozen, and the only thing that seemed to move was the commander's strike. I knew I should move, try to dodge or block, but my body wouldn't respond. No, it can't respond. I closed my eyes, and as I did, the world unfroze. A burst of air sent my hair flying and my body tensed. My hands trembled, but the strike that I prepared for never came. Slowly opening my eyes, I saw the wooden sword hovering an inch from my head, Roderick frowning slightly. The commander pulled away, and as he did, my knees buckled, causing me to crumple to the ground. I gasped, not realizing that I had been holding my breath. My eyes fell to my sword now on the ground. I couldn't even react. I had swordsmanship, earthen sense, and heightened perception, but his movements were still just a blur to me. If he wanted to, he could have struck me, and I wouldn't have been able to stop him. "Stand up," he told me. "Yes, sir," I responded, pulling myself off the ground and grabbing my sword. My body was still shaking slightly. "Watch closely," he said, taking a strike with his sword, cutting through the air vertically. Watching carefully, I saw his sword change direction mid-strike, now moving horizontally. "What did you see?" I thought for a moment before answering. "I saw your sword change directions." He sighed. "That's your problem. You're too busy watching the sword, trying to track it." "Is that wrong?" I questioned. "Yes, because by the time you see it, it's already moving," he explained. My eyes widened. He's right. When he attacked me, I tried to follow his sword, but it was already too late when he brought it down. "Then what do I watch?" I asked. "You watch me, my feet, my shoulders. Your opponent's sword can deceive you, while their body has a much harder time doing that," he stated. "Now try again. Focus on my shoulder and block my attack. I'll slow it down for right now," he said, dashing at me. He was definitely moving slower than before, but it still seemed really fast to me. I focused, watching his body as it approached. Where his feet landed and how they pointed, how he bent his arms, and where his shoulders pointed. Before the strike came, I noticed it. There. A slight shift in his shoulder, and then followed by a turn in his waist. I raised my sword, my eyes widening as the two swords collided slightly. My sword buckled under the attack, causing me to lose my balance. In the next second, I fell, hitting my head on a rock. My head throbbed for a moment, my hand touching the spot where it hurt. My hand burned as hot red blood stained it slightly. Looking up at him, I smiled. I saw it, and I was close to blocking it. I yelled out while smiling, standing on my feet and basically jumping up and down. Wiping off the blood without him realizing that I had been injured and feeling the wound on my head heal quickly, I got back in my stance. You did, but your block was terrible. The smile vanished from my face. You were too slow. Your angle was off, and your grip loosened on impact, he stated. I see. My eyes fell to the floor for a moment. Again, he said suddenly, causing my eyes to dart up and find him. This time, I'll do better. React quicker, find an angle that won't just block the slash, but deflect it and don't lose strength underneath his attack. Don't let it overpower you. My eyes tracked him, watching closely, and when he delivered the attack, I was ready. My arms strained as I raised my blade, but it met his midair. My arms buckled slightly but held strong. The clash seemed to last forever, but in reality, it was less than a second. His blade slid off of mine, leaving me unscathed but weak. Sweat stained my brow and my arms trembled. I breathed heavily, but then I smiled. I did it. You did, and it was much better. Now do it again, he said while moving towards me. Doing as he said, I watched, seeing his shoulder shift. Smiling, I raised my sword to block the incoming attack, but my eyes widened as his attack suddenly changed direction. In the next moment, he halted his sword an inch away from my waist. He smiled. I said it was harder to use the body to deceive your opponents, but I didn't say it's impossible. He twirled his blade slightly. That was a feint. The reason you fell for it was that you saw my shoulder move and then immediately went to block. My mouth fell open. What was I supposed to do? Keep watching me no matter what. The instant you saw my shoulder move, you shifted your attention to the blade, he answered. A tell isn't always the truth, Luna. It is only information for you to use, he added. Then how am I supposed to predict what attacks are coming? I asked. He sighed. You don't. You use all the information you gathered, you watch all of them, not just a single part, and you react accordingly, he said. A person who commits to the first thing they see can be easily controlled in a fight, so don't. Commit when they commit. I pondered that lesson, my foot rapidly bouncing up and down. But won't I be too slow? Only if you are late, he said. That's the hard part. Commit too early and you'll fall for a feint. Commit too late and you'll get hit. My fingers traced themselves across the sword, images of his last attack replaying through my mind. You have to find the perfect in-between. What if I don't? I asked. You will. It will take time and hard work, but you will, he said quietly. How long? I questioned. I don't know, that's up to you. If you strive for it and treat every encounter as an opportunity to learn, then you will master it far quicker, he explained. Now, enough talking. You'll understand it more with me hitting you. He dashed at me, and my eyes locked onto him. His waist twisted, his shoulder shifted again, a feint. To my surprise, he struck forward instantly. Seeing that he did not feint this time and instead committed right away, I brought my sword up to block as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, due to my hesitation at the start, he struck me in the shoulder. Wincing, I dropped my sword, holding where he struck me. Pain is a good teacher, and I know you have a regeneration skill, Luna. Leora told me about it. Looking at him, I nodded, picking up the sword as the tender spot on my shoulder disappeared. Dashing at me again, I focused. Commit when he commits. Be faster. His wrist bent, his sword tilting slightly. I flinched but held back, my eyes staying locked on him. Suddenly, his sword changed directions, his shoulder shifting quickly. Reading the attack, I quickly blocked it, deflecting it off my blade. I smiled and began to open my mouth, but was stopped as he raised his sword again. Panicking, I tried to block but was left undefended as he feinted the attack, instead hitting me in the side. Coughing, my mind slightly flashed to right before he hit me. During it, I saw that he pulled back slightly before hitting me. He knows I have a regeneration skill, but he still doesn't want to hurt me that much. "That's another problem," he said. Rubbing my side, I listened quietly. "You thought you had won since you blocked my attack once," he said while tapping the bridge of his nose. "But you should never stop defending until your opponent is incapacitated or out of reach. Keep watching your opponents." He got back in his stance, and then so did I. He moved forward, and my eyes followed him. The sun raged down upon us, sweat soaking me, my breath harsh and ragged, the result of countless failed attempts. My skin glistened, and my eyes shone as I looked up. The scorching sun floating in the sky had now reached its peak. My arms trembled, and my body felt weak, but the commander's voice rang out. "Again!" His body moved, my eyes followed. I watched him, his movements, his eyes, everything that could give me information. He shifted, but I waited, I watched. Another movement, but I did not budge. Finally, with a third move, he struck out, bringing my sword up. I deflected it to the side. Quickly, I stepped back to create distance, watching as he thrust right away. Dodging out of the way, I kept my sword facing him. He struck again, his sword above his head, only to be directed at my side. Grunting, I forced my trembling arms to move my blade, it colliding with his. His sword bounced off, and I backed up again, ready for the next attack. He sighed, setting the blade down. "Good job, Luna," he said. "It's time for lunch." My body tensed for a second, but then calmed when I realized that he was serious. Taking a deep breath in, I calmed my shaking hands and slowly walked away, entering the house and beginning to cook. As I prepared lunch, my tired body throbbed, but a small grin appeared on my face. "I did it!" I shouted loud enough that the commander outside could have heard it. Chapter 40, Crownspire Academy. Lunch started quietly, my body still aching. I found myself thinking about the training that I had just received, but in the back of my mind, something else lingered. Kayla's previous words about me joining an academy kept resurfacing. The information that I had gained from Matt also started to seep into my mind. Academies, places where people go to learn and grow stronger. From what I've heard, they are amazing, but even so, I don't know what they truly are and what it's like to attend one. Other than helping people develop, I'm not sure what else they offer. I took a bite of the toast that I had made, my eyes looking up at the commander who sat across from me, him being mid-bite as well. Swallowing, I wiped my face with a napkin before opening my mouth. Sir, I mean Roderick, do you know anything about academies?" I asked. He coughed slightly when he heard the question. Grabbing his cup, he quickly took a sip of water before swallowing the chunk of bread that was lodged in his mouth. Looking at me, he answered. "Quite a bit, actually. Why?" "Well, I was thinking about maybe attending one," I responded. "Is that so?" He took another bite. "You know it is awfully difficult to get in and very expensive." "I know, most academies are for nobles," I said while sipping on my water. "But I still can try, right? It's not impossible." It's definitely not impossible. How do you think Leora and I met?" He chuckled. "Wait, you two went to the same academy?" My hand holding another piece of bread froze. "How'd I not know this?" I yelled. "Well, I don't go around telling people about it, and Leora is too embarrassed to tell the story." "What story?" "I won't go into detail, but let's say Leora and I were more than just friends." "What does that mean?" I asked, genuinely confused. Seeing the genuine confusion on my face, he answered. "We were together, Luna," he said awkwardly. "What does together mean?" I'll tell you later. Sometimes I can't tell if you've lost your memory or if you were born a month ago," he said while sighing. "Okay, so what academy did you go to?" I asked. "The academy that I went to is in Valyrian, and it was called the Royal Crownspire Academy of Arcana and Arms, or as most people call it, Crownspire Academy." "It's in the capital. What was it like?" "Well, it's one of the most prestigious academies in Ilarion, so you could say it was. Excessive. Gold lined the halls, art hung across every wall, sculptures and statues were around every corner." I nodded quickly as he spoke. "It was massive, the size of a few dozen Lumières, maybe even more." "It's that big," I muttered aloud. "Yes, the grounds consist of the main academy itself with the library, dormitories, training facilities, and lecture halls." He sighed. "They also have multiple common spaces that allow for socializing when you aren't busy with your classwork and training." He coughed slightly before continuing. "The campus also has its very own forest and lake," he continued. "On top of that, it has artificial environments like a marsh, an open wildland, a scorching desert, a frost region modeled after the frost reach, a volcanic zone built to represent the ashen expanse, and a monstrous mountain range. They use these for drills to simulate different environments." My mind pondered how a single academy could be so large, but even with its size, how could it contain all the different biomes? "How can the Crownspire Academy have multiple environments?" Good question. Other than the forest and lake, the rest of the environments are all constructed environments. Constructed. It means created. Multiple powerful mages spent years creating them. When I was there, we called them artificial environments because, after their creation, massive ancient arrays of runes were built to maintain each of them, he explained. At this point, I had stopped eating and was listening, my last piece of toast growing cold on my plate. "The Academy has been around since the beginning of the Kingdom of Ilarion, thousands of years ago," he said, taking another sip of water. "These environments have existed for so long that dungeons have even formed within them." "Dungeons?" I questioned. He grumbled. "Dungeons. Dungeons are enclosed territories that contain monsters, traps, and treasure. Each one has its own unique layout, look, valuable treasures, deadly traps, and even monsters." He set his cup down onto the table. "As long as the dungeon's core isn't destroyed, it will continue operating, producing monsters and treasures on its own." "What kind of monsters are in these dungeons?" I asked. "It can vary. Newer dungeons might only have a single floor filled with basic slimes." He tapped his foot suddenly. "Older dungeons, though, those can contain true monsters and stretch hundreds of floors deep, but all dungeons have a rule. The highest floors have the weakest monsters, and when you go deeper, the stronger they get." True monsters. Images of the massive flying demons appeared in my mind. Could a dungeon create a demon? His foot stopped tapping. "No. From what I know, dungeons can only imitate demons, not create true ones." His eyes drifted toward the sword hanging on the wall, but I suppose it might be possible. I tilted my head. "When I attended Crownspire, I heard about a dungeon that contained nothing but trolls. Then, one day, an ogre wandered inside and was killed. Within a week, the dungeon had formed a new floor populated by both ogres and trolls. So if a demon were to die within a dungeon. Maybe, I'm not sure." My chest tightened as I gripped the side of my chair, my knuckles turning white. Even the possibility of a dungeon capable of creating demons terrified me. I breathed deeply before continuing. "What are the most dangerous dungeon monsters you have encountered?" "I haven't encountered them. but there were multiple dungeons within Crownspire Academy that had restricted floors. Restricted? I probed. I'll give you some examples. To start, there was a dungeon within the Frost environment. The deepest floor we were allowed to go to was floor 70, because after that, frost giants began to appear. He shivered slightly. There was a rumor that the dungeon had recently sprouted its 100th floor, with a boss monster, an infant ice dragon. Ice dragon, I mumbled. Yes, a dragon, one of the deadliest kinds of monsters to exist. Another dungeon, one within the Wildlands, was restricted beyond the 30th floor. Since that floor contained a lick, an undead monster capable of summoning weaker undead to serve it. I looked at him, intrigued, leaning forward slightly. Actually, that dungeon had a unique set of rules. The maximum number of people that could enter at once was 10, and you could only enter at night. The entrance was sealed during the day. What would happen if an 11th person tried to enter, or if you tried to go in during the day? I asked. You'd be stopped at the entrance by some barrier. People have tried to break them, but even archmages have failed, he said. And with only 10 people, if they weren't all of an elite caliber, then facing an army of undead was nearly a death sentence. Finishing his glass of water, he stood up. Dungeons are one of the most intriguing things in Clara Estrum. People dedicate their entire lives to studying them. I watched as he walked over to the sink and filled his cup with water that I got from the stream. Do you know how dungeons grow? Not exactly. One theory is that dungeons slowly gather essence from creatures simply being inside them. But when something dies within a dungeon, it receives far more. He sighed, taking another sip. Doesn't matter what dies either. A dungeon monster, a wild creature, a human. Once something dies inside, its remains are eventually converted into essence and absorbed by the dungeon. What's essence? I asked, raising my eyebrows slightly. He laughed. That's something you'll have to ask Leora. She actually took dungeon study as an elective. I did not. I see, all right. I have one last question about dungeons for now. Yes. Aren't dungeons just the best way to level up? I questioned before continuing. Since they keep creating new monsters, and their floors are filled with the monsters, it has to be much quicker than hunting, right? Ha, you're right, but also wrong. Dungeon monsters are infinite and there are plenty of them, but there's a catch. Which is? Dungeon-created monsters only give 1/5 the EXP that a wild monster of the same level would. He paused for a moment, stroking his chin. What I can remember is that it has something to do with dungeon monsters only having a fraction of the essence that a normal monster would, around 20%. 1/5, I shouted. That would be only 1 EXP for a level 1 monster, 2 for a level 2, 4 for a level 3, and so on. I wonder if that applies to my blood absorption too. Yep, but still I do believe that it is much quicker if you have a strong party and can venture into the deeper floors, because out in the wild you won't be able to find the monsters dungeons have, he said, while putting his cup down. He cracked his back before continuing. Plus, if you're quick enough, you can still harvest the valuable parts of dungeon monsters, and any treasure you find is a nice bonus too. He smiled. Those were the good old days. He sighed while looking at me. Is there anything else you want to know about Crownspire Academy? He asked. I thought for a moment before responding. Yes, one more thing. Yes, he responded. How can I apply? He hummed for a second before responding. First, you send in an application detailing your level, skills, abilities, and anything else that might make you stand out. Alongside that letter, you can have recommendation letters from influential people willing to back you. He pointed at himself. I could write you one, Same with Leora, we are graduates after all. I smiled at him as he said that. My chest felt warm and fuzzy. If you don't mind, I would appreciate that, I said. Is there anything else I need? Yes, you need to inform them that you need to be tested for a magical affinity. They have the capabilities to do that there, he said. I understand, thank you. He stood up and placed his plate in the sink. My eyes followed his movements without me even realizing it. I said I could recommend you, not that I would. The evaluation is 6 months from now, and applications are due in 3. You'll have to earn my recommendation, and I expect Leora will make you earn hers as well. My eyes widened as he spoke, the warm feeling in my chest suddenly turning cold. Why? What do I have to do? You have 3 months to impress me and get strong enough to perform well at Crownspire Academy. I will not spend my money and ship you off there only to have you be unprepared and sent back. My fists clenched, my pearl white hair falling over my eyes. I swear I won't disappoint you. I know you won't. Don't worry, I've seen how hard you work. If you keep it up, I bet you'll have a real chance to get in. He sighed. But I have to warn you, if you do get in, it won't be easy. You have no influential family backing you. Leora belongs to a minor noble house, and while I'm well known, I don't have a noble title. At Crownspire, that matters. I bit my lip, drawing a small amount of blood. I thought of my siblings. You'll be surrounded by nobles who have been taught their entire lives that they're above those of lower status. Some of them will look down on you, and some may even target you because of it. I know. My fists tightened beneath the table. But it doesn't matter. I looked at him, my crimson eyes locked with his. I will get in.